You surface from the underground at Piccadilly Circus.
Mind the gap.
Making your way through the glittering lights of London's West End, you take a turn down a quaint-looking street into the notorious neighborhood of Soho. The lights are dimming, the crowd is buzzing, and you've just tuned in to the best seat in the house. Welcome to The Big Smoke, a variety show podcast. I'm Kevin Bennett, and I'll be your guide through this experience of comedy, conversation, and community. Today we're exploring objects, the mind, and the curious ways they shape the world around us. First up, I sit down with Corinna and Donata from the Victoria and Albert Museum to explore the fascinating world of rapid response collecting. From single-use vapes to the mosquito emoji, we ask what objects can reveal about who we are and the times we're living through. Then it's time for Archie's Neuro Nuggets, this week diving into the strange, tingly world of ASMR. And what on earth is happening in the brain when a whisper, a rustle, or a softly tapped microphone sends some of us into bliss, and others reaching straight for the skip button? And finally, emerging once more from the corridors of the Xander Eldrick Institute, the Strange Brothers return with more magical mishaps, mind games, and deeply questionable decision-making. So, let's tune in. Conversation. Situated in the Design 1900 to Now galleries, the Victoria and Albert Museum's Rapid Response Collecting acquires objects that speak to contemporary social and political moments and highlights the connection between design, art, and society. The collection continues to evolve as new moments, movements, and meanings emerge. Please help me welcome the V&A's Senior Curator of Design and Digital, Corinna Gardner, and Assistant Curator, Donata Miller-Obebe. Thank you both so much for being here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. Welcome to The Big Smoke. So we're talking today about probably my favorite museum in London, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and specifically the Rapid Response Collecting or Collection. I'd love to start with, either of you could start with this, but for listeners who aren't London-based or who don't know what the V&A is, can you tell us just kind of broadly, what is the V&A, and then how does Rapid Response Collecting fit within that?
Yeah, so the Victoria and Albert Museum is the V&A, and it was started in the 1800s by Prince Albert and Victoria, hence Queen Victoria, hence the name of the museum. And it sits in London in a very interesting space, nicknamed Albertropolis. It was one of Prince Albert's main projects, or a really close to his heart cultural project of his. So there's several cultural institutions across a smaller area or across the area.
Albertropolis?
Yeah, Albertropolis. So there's university, there's the Royal Albert Hall, and just a really great cultural area. And the V&A sits within that as a museum focusing on art, design, performance, but really a variety of methods of creativity across the globe and across time. So that's where the V&A sits within things. Yeah.
Yeah, we often like to call ourselves the world's first design museum.
Also
the museum with the first museum cafe, because you need to be well fed to learn.
Really? Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes, so there was a real kind of social and public purpose at the foundation of the museum, that it was for the every person to come and learn their craft and their skill, or to improve their mind. And clearly we've been going for a wee while now.
Yeah.
And so Rapid Response Collecting sits within that. How long has that been around, and what was the genesis of that?
Oh, yeah. I'll give that one a punt. So Rapid Response Collecting has been at the museum since 2014.
Okay.
So I just mentioned that we're a design museum, and we have a collections division that's made up of different departments that has different areas of collecting focus. And in the early 2010s, there was a sense that the collecting departments at the time didn't really represent design as it was happening now. And so a new team of curators was brought on board in 2013. And I was one of them, so I've been there a while. But there was a recognition that immense expertise and talent in the museum already. So what were we going to do? And so it was that sense of reflecting contemporary design practice in the round, acknowledging that we live in a globalized world, but also that expertise is broadly shared. So rapid response collecting is about bringing objects into the museum. At the time, they're the subject of conversation, water cooler moments, in the news, and really thinking about how designed objects can help us ask the big questions of society today. So that was the ambition that we started rapid response collecting with what's more than 10 years ago now, and we're still doing it.
And before rapid response came about, what was the newest thing or collection in the V&A? What was the most contemporary thing before that?
So we're always collecting contemporary works, like thinking about our photography collection, for example. We've been collecting since photography was invented. So there's always an element of contemporary. In the kind of 1950s onward period, we also had a department called the circulation department, and they would collect contemporary work and then show it across the country, pack things up, send them all across different parts of the country and bring them back to museums, send them off again for those kind of educational purposes. So we've always been collecting in that way. And there's also even a fund that the V&A has where it supports other museums across the country to collect contemporary work and new works for their collection.
So those who might be familiar with the V&A might think of us as a brilliantly splendid collection of things of the past. But actually, we've always, as Donata said, always collected the contemporary. And year on year, it might be surprising, but the most of what we bring into our collections is contemporary. And that's because historic objects are harder to find, but it's also that sustained commitment to the here and now. I mean, it might be very fine, ceramics or glass. Rapid response collecting, I suppose, broadens the definition of design and brings us back into a more experienced notion of what design is that you and I might be familiar with as we walk the streets or in our own homes. It's to say that design is for everybody and is everything. And so I suppose it's a mixture of both the contemporary, but also a questioning of what design and creative practice is.
You know, one of the things I love about the V&A in general, before I, for myself, discovered rapid response collecting, is I always find it, similarly why I love going to antique auctions or flea markets or whatever. Like I grew up going to garage sales down the road, and because I love something that's used. I love something that, you know, people in their daily life use. I love the feeling, thinking about the story behind an object. I'm really curious, what is the process for rapid response collecting? How do you determine, you know, what to bring in? And are you always on the lookout? Are there meetings with lots of different people to decide, okay, this is going to come in? How does that look?
Yeah, so are we always on the lookout? We are. We are always on the lookout. And that's us as curators, but also in that way of looking at accessibility and rapid response collecting being for everyone. We're always asking people for suggestions as well and moving between different media to do that, whether it was Twitter back when rapid response collecting started or through via email now or, via other social media networks. So we're always looking for recommendations for things to add to the collection. And once we have that kind of suggestion of something, a team member will present it at a team meeting. And we have several of those meetings with different staff. So they kind of present it, argue for that object, and then it's a vote on whether it goes ahead to the other groups in the museum or not.
So there's a sense of tiered decision-making, but every object that enters the collection, whether it's rapid response or not, we have to write what's known as a justification. So that's a text where we lay out what it is, its design value, its novelty, its relevance to society today, or if it's a historic object, which rapid response is not, but for example, its relevance to history, but also history today, and then also its resonance with the wider V&A collection. And that's the case we then take forward for approval. And once approved, we can start to bring the object into the collection.
So with rapid response, since there is little to no history behind the object in terms of its right now. How do you make that case? How is that different from what you would do if it was a 100-year-old or whatever object where you can kind of look in hindsight and see this is the relevance because of the impact that it's had? How do you make that determination now?
I think it's such a useful exercise that we usually do because it allows you to look at the object in a slightly different way. So sometimes the kind of narrative that the object is related to in the news or on social media can remind us of some of the other objects that we have in the collection, or, oh, this is a story we haven't covered yet and something that we should be covering within the collection. And that's always our kind of starting point. And I think that first stage where we're able to talk with other curators then allows us to develop our conversation around it further, to think this is interesting, but what are the different threads of that object that I can pull at?
This might be a bit of a both and kind of question, but I was thinking about the chicken and the egg of it, of like, when a global event happens, do you find yourself or other members on the team going, is there an object related to this event? Or do you wait until you're presented somehow with an object that's related to
It's
whatever's
definitely
going
something
on?
we've learned over the course of running the programme of acquisition. The object has to stand forward. But that said, the expectation of us is, I guess I consider us to be cultural listeners or contemporary historians. And so the expectation of us is to be about and in the world, but we think through objects. And that's where the success of rapid response collecting sits, because it's through the design thing that we can come to the more challenging questions. We don't always get it right. I think one of the nice things about rapid response is it's given us a degree of freedom. I mean, we take every object into the collection. It has the same status as any other object in the museum, so we take it very seriously in those terms. But that said, there is a degree of willingness to be open to different types of objects. And just to come back to that question of these objects being without history, history is made in the moment. They have provenance in museum terms. We just have to shape that up. And as Donata says, it's a really useful task, but it's the objects of the here and now, almost relationships that we bring into the museum. So it's that nature of use, of how it was made. It's proof of success in the field or failure. Why was it an object that captured a public imagination at the time? And how can we hold that information around the object in the collection for the visitors of today, but also the historians of tomorrow? Because that's the task that we take on.
Do you find rapid response collecting gets a different reaction from the public than other collections? Or is it quite similar? Do people react strongly to the choices that are made because they're maybe a part of living people's lives more, since it's very much in the present?
Yeah, I think we can have great reactions to the everyday collections as well, but you do have something special when someone sees something that they own themselves in the case, or something that they're reminded of their friends or family in seeing the piece. But I think, yes, that happens with the contemporary objects, but it can also happen with a historical object that speaks to them. So we see these different ways that creativity is sparked, and rapid response collecting just allows us to do that in another unique way, or give another avenue for people to feel close to the objects.
To build on that, one of the things that we do with rapid response collecting is the object always goes on immediate display. So there's a difference. So we have loads of contemporary things in the museum.
Yeah.
Brilliantly so. They're in galleries where we bring objects together and collectively, be it 5 objects or the gallery as a whole, we try and build narratives so that you come to a story told through objects. With rapid response collecting, we put it on display immediately on its own. I mean, it's in a gallery setting, but it stands for itself. And we, through the text and the labels that we write, say why the museum has been interested in this object at this point in time. So it also shows the working of the museum and that sense of a kind of theatre of activity, but it's on the level. We're transparent about what we're doing. And I think that also brings about a different reaction, because folks think, well, would I have done that? Do I think that's what might I have done different? And again, it's about the agency of the institution. Like, what is the museum there to do? Who are curators? What does it mean to keep something forever? So that relationship in how the visitor comes to the object, and that can be online as well, it's not just in the building, is set up slightly differently. And that's what is a a really important and strong characteristic of the program. It's about whose response is it? As Donata's also said, it's about a conversation. Like, we want folks to suggest objects too, but how does that happen? Like, museums are quite intimidating places. How do you open up that conversation? And rapid response is part of doing that. And if we've done it well, we'll get more suggestions. But that's also about how you bring that, or how you put that object into conversation with a visitor. Rather than that sense of broadcast, you should be looking at this object because it holds these values and tells you this about the present moment. It's like, we found this object at this point interesting because X or Y used it in protest, or because it's a piece of material innovation that means you can go 500 meters into the sky without having to change lift. It's about that process being part of the program of what we do.
I guess it does have that. I completely agree with Corinna. It's like the conversational element is really important for rapid response collecting. So since we lay out the information like that, then it leads to more conversation for people in the galleries, but also considering what do they have at home, what's their connections, and also what should be collected next. It does democratize.
I was just thinking, you mentioned, in the early days when more people, I guess, were using Twitter. And if someone listening has something that they want to suggest, how do they put that forward? Is there social media, or do they go to the website?
Well, we have an AAPD inquiries email. So it's just like aapd.inquiries. And that's the department that Corinne and I and Rapid Response Collecting sits in, art, architecture, photography, design, which is available through the contact page on the website to view. But also, we've definitely had suggestions that the social media team have said, oh, this has come up quite a few times on one of our videos. Is this something you're considering? So whether it's people actually approaching, we've also done things like a Friday late focusing on rapid response collecting, or workshops focusing on rapid response collecting. So we try to gather from many different sources, but it might even be a colleague speaking with someone that they know or someone they don't know. We get suggestions from a variety of sources.
And we always want more.
Yes, yeah.
I love the idea of it being kind of in conversation and in process as you're talking about, and kind of building the story with the audience or the people who are coming to the V&A. How rapid is the response? So what's the fastest that an object has, you've thought of it, had all the meetings, and then it's been on display?
I think the fastest we've achieved is about 3 weeks.
Okay.
The slowest is 14 months.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's interesting, particularly when we first started, rapid was understood in multiple ways. And some thought it was the museum just going out and going, yes, 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 and bringing in lots at a time.
Sure.
And actually, it's about trying to get the object while it's still in that live conversation. But what we've also learned is, in going after the object, if the object has that discursive nature, its liveness, for want of a better description, sustains. So the object that took us a really long time to bring to the museum was actually also our first object.
Oh, really?
Which was a real proof or test of concept, because it was a 3D printed firearm, which was made in the States. And of course, it's a plastic gun. And although the museum has a firearms license and the maker had a firearms manufacturing license, he did not have an export license. But also, what is it to export or import a plastic firearm? It was without the framework of the current law. And so we had to wait for those processes to change for us to bring the object into the collection, which was super interesting. But that firearm, a super challenging object, because of what it is, didn't lose that discursive power.
Well, the other thing that I found when I went to go through, I've obviously been online and looked at the objects, but I also went to the museum a couple of weeks ago, is I'm surprised at how, I mean, it probably is to do with how fast the news cycle is nowadays. And seems like there's, let's say you go on holiday for a week and you don't check your phone. It's like the whole world's changed. Because when I was looking through the objects, it kind of amazed me that I almost forgot about certain things only from 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And that was another thing that I thought was really valuable about rapid response, or even just looking at the last 2014, all the objects that have been collected since then is a reminder of how quickly things change. And you can, for me at least, I almost forget about it because I'm focused on whatever it is that I read today.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the strengths of rapid response collecting. It's really a program for now because previously we used to print things. Some people still print things, but printing was more common. Reading books physically was more common. This idea of holding on to items throughout our lifetime was a bit more common, but with increasing idea of, Marie Kondo, clearing out your life. Some of these items that are like ephemera or that museums usually collect, 50 years after an event has happened in this digital realm may not even be printed, may not exist, may have been deleted from someone's WhatsApp. This idea of holding on to a kind of archive of today and what we go through today is increasingly urgent and important, especially as these, like you said, the news cycles get shorter and shorter, and our attention spans also move on quicker and quicker as well.
The other fascinating thing is for people listening, it's not necessarily always a physical object you can hold. For example, there's an app in there that maybe we'll talk about in a minute. There's one of my favorites is an emoji, mosquito emoji that I'll ask you about in a bit. But I just thought, it's interesting. These are not all. I mean, I guess you can hold an app on the phone, but some, they're not maybe what someone would think in an obvious way when they think I'm going to go into a museum and see a bunch of different objects. I was wondering about something that I think is really interesting is how, before we get into talking about some of the specific objects, how rapid response reflects or makes people look at the rest of the museum. I guess, do you have thoughts on this / have you heard comments from people about how the rapid response collection makes you view the rest of the museum or objects in the museum in an interesting way or in a different way?
I think there are a number of ways of answering that question, and I really like it. I think, what might the rapid response object of the 17th century have been? I often like to think about rapid response collecting as a way of looking. It's going out into the world, almost a bit like an investigative journalist and trying to get to the heart of an issue. So it might be, mahogany as a timber, deeply exploitative and deeply challenging at a period of time. We've got lots of mahogany in the collection. Inlaid ivory. You might think about these materials differently when looking at a piano of the past. Or another nice example, we have objects in the collection from the Wiener Werkstätte, which are an early 20th century workshop for design things, but also an early example of an employer creating paid holidays. And so, it's about how do you come to those objects and what are the people, what are the context stories around these objects. So I think, yes, there are different ways of looking, not just at the museum and our collections, but the world beyond the doors of the institution or beyond the website that you've encountered rapid response on. So I definitely hope that kind of criticality and spark translates beyond what we do. So yeah, I think that's one way to answer the question. You were talking a little bit about the intangible or the digital. We, and Donata was saying about socials and how we don't, like the world today is orchestrated through digital devices, software programs, big tech corporations.
Yeah.
That is a designed experience. It's a designed world. And as a museum responsible for telling stories around design, it's as important that we hold on to the virtual world or the digital world, the digital thing, as it is the physical. And yes, that's a massive challenge for us as museums, but we're working at it. We've got apps, we've got a few web pages, websites, we've got to get there. Because otherwise the recent past will pass us by.
Well, one of my favorites when I was looking through is, as I mentioned, the mosquito emoji. I did ask you before you came in to think of a few that were maybe on your list that stood out to you. But I just wanted to mention with this mosquito emoji, there's something interesting that I read. Just talking about reflecting, it says, I think this is from the website, the mosquito links to the museum's wider collection in its acquisition of public health campaign prints, such as the set of Ministry of Health tuberculosis posters from 1949 and Department of Health and Social Security AIDS awareness posters designed by Malcolm Gaskin and David O'Connor Thompson in 1987. And I thought that was really interesting to just see it reflected in the different eras of similar, I guess, types of objects or images. Let's look at some of these or talk about some of these objects that are your favorites. But maybe let's start with the mosquito emoji. Can either of you tell me just a little bit about that, why it was chosen and why it's in the collection?
The mosquito emoji came into the collection at the time that the design for a mosquito emoji was put forward to the Unicode Consortium, which is the decision-making body that agrees which emojis get adopted into the set that we see on all of our devices. And that is an agreed set that will leap across different platforms. So they work.
So interesting. I didn't even know that was
Well, you have
thing.
an iPhone or an Android.
Yeah.
And so there's a group of people who make these quite important decisions because we now realise that emoji are a language, a form of language, which importantly for the mosquito emoji are supralingual. It doesn't matter if you're speaking an African language or a European language.
Sure.
It leaps across geographic, or emoji leap across language, political, geographic boundaries. And that's why we're interested in it. The mosquito is the most dangerous animal in the world. If we can find better ways to communicate, so that's the public health aspect of it, lives can be saved. And so there was a group of, I suppose, health professionals who campaigned for the mosquito to be adopted as an emoji. And they worked with, which I find very interesting, a designer, Alejandra Mesa, who had a track record in designing emoji that were approved by the Unicode Consortium. So it was a clever approach, which then meant that the emoji could be approved and entered into what we all have on our phones. What's interesting for us at the museum, and it comes back to the challenge of the digital, is that we have her design for the emoji in the collection. So that is a digital drawing. We don't actually have the mosquito emoji itself because that at the time is something much harder to hold on to. So that's what we have. We have the kind of design process drawing and the means through which that approval was successfully achieved.
Interesting. When you say difficult to hold on to, what do you mean?
Well, who owns an emoji?
Right. Okay.
In that sense. And for a collection, such as the V&A, the Nationals, we have to demonstrate legal title over an object. And when it comes to the digital, that can often be more complex. We're on a journey. We're learning how to do it. And with this emoji, and also like the craft, the hand of the maker, even in the digital, is super interesting. And so, it was serendipity, but it was also the fortuitous point of interest. But also, we came to it because they were very public about their campaign to get this particular emoji approved by Unicode. Donata.
Yeah, it's like the intersection between what's happening in society and designs and how they can speak to each other. So this was a really great example of that. And our digital objects, because people make them for a certain purpose, when we say to them we want to collect it into the museum collection, then that's a whole nother conversation about how long can you keep a digital object for? How will you keep the digital object? How do you keep it running in perpetuity or not in perpetuity? These are all conversations that we have to have for the different physical objects, but also the digital objects, and to see what's reasonable. So we always have those kind of conversations. And I think emoji is a great example, and one of the early examples of those kind of conversations. Maybe WeChat is another really strong example.
Yes, WeChat too. But it's that sense also of the purposefulness of the digital, which I think often, because in conversation, it's social media, it's just brain rot, it's time wasting, it's the infinite scroll. Actually, the digital is our world, and there's a breadth of good and bad and everything in between. And this is an object that brings forward the new possibilities of the digital. In effect, it's graphic design for public health, like the examples you mentioned earlier, but in the here and now. Well, and how does that get to happen?
And for anyone who's still questioning, why would you put an emoji in? I thought this was fascinating when I was reading this. Apparently, an emoji, which is the face with the tears of joy, this is from the website of the V&A's website, was also the Oxford English Dictionary Word of the Year in 2015, with the president of the OED defining its importance as an increasingly rich form of communication, one that transcends linguistic borders. That was a fascinating factoid that I didn't know at all, that an emoji was actually the Word of the Year. So maybe a couple years before this was brought into the collection. So absolutely fascinating. How about we go into some of your favorites? Who wants to go first?
Yeah. Oh,
Donata?
I'll start. I think I will start with the Lost Mary vape. It's a very
And that's
recent
currently
object.
on display if anyone's going to the museum.
A very recent object, but I think it really speaks to the historic contemporary links that we've spoken about already. There's been a long history of smoking ads, smoking campaigns for against smoking over the years. But early on in rapid response collecting, we collected an item called Vipe around 2014. And that was a cigar-like object. So it had the form of a cigarette, but it was a new electronic cigarette and new technology at the time. And in the last 2 years now, we've collected Lost Mary. And the pieces that we've collected are single-use vapes. So they'll have names like BM 600, which means like 600 puffs in one vape. And
you have to throw them away once they're finished.
Yeah, you throw them away once they're finished. But we really connected that object to legislation going through in the government, environmental legislation happening, vaping and
because now those are illegal, right? You
Yes.
can't sell single-use vapes.
Yes, yeah. So that's a great example of us collecting. And then the pieces that we collected aren't actually legal anymore to buy, as well as the in that form. You can buy them as a kind of multi-use vape now. But these ideas about the environment, sustainability, smoking and the evolution of smoking or the changes that have happened in smoking all come up through this Lost Mary object, as well as design-wise. We were attracted to it, seeing it across the streets of London, seeing it almost like a accessory that people would have the different colours, and also seeing its similarity to different design objects of the time, the curves of the Lost Mary, the gradient colours or gradiated colours of the Lost Mary. So that's one example of a really interesting recent object that we've collected and that we wouldn't be able to collect in the same form that we collected it a few years ago.
And it's also an interesting object that asks of us what it is to collect. Like, I think design museums, brilliantly so, often see themselves as sites of excellence. And are we therefore at the V&A saying this is an object of excellence? And I think it's been very successful. It depends on what your measure of success is, but it also depends on what you think the act of collecting is there to do. Yeah. And I think we are historians of the here and now, and I feel a strong commitment to tell history in the round. And that's a really good example of where the design enables us to do so. Because if you look at the legislation, a lot of it was about the design of these single-use vapes.
Oh, really? Okay.
And how they were attractive to young people, which is also a health risk. And so it's the rounded out narrative of that object. And I think the other thing, yes, we've really invested in these objects in the here and now and what we're doing with them, or what our visitors are asking of us to do as an institution. But we hold these objects, as Donata's already said, with a commitment to perpetuity, which is quite challenging at times. But we don't know what stories people in the future will want to tell around these objects. So again, it's about trying to hold all of those narrative threads with the object in the collection so that it can become a high-performance object into the future.
Fascinating. Yeah. I think that's a great one to talk about. What else do we have? Let's move on to another one.
Corinna?
Another.
Oh,
favorite.
I find it really hard.
I know. Listen, my notes are. I've got so many because I was like, it's hard to narrow it down.
We enjoy the fandom, so thank you. I suppose maybe we could go for the Lego Research Institute.
Okay, cool. And that one's currently on display too, right?
It's just come off display.
Okay. But you can see it online if
you
you're
can definitely
interested.
see it online. They've gone somewhere to rest for a little while because they've proven so popular. But it's a figurine set that for the first time showed women in a professional setting that wasn't gendered.
Wow.
And
for Lego's first time or
yes,
okay.
for Lego. And let's think about Lego as a kind of known educational toy that's been around for decades, Danish made. And it was a really important new avenue. And one of the things that's interesting also about how that came about. So it was a chemist, a paleontologist, and an astronomer. And what was interesting, it was the first time that Lego opened up the design process to suggestions from the public. And there are lots of fans of Lego, both children but also adult fans.
Yeah.
And it was a professional working in the sciences herself as an adult fan who put forward this set of figurines because she felt she was not represented in what folks were playing with, be they adults or, as importantly, young children, particularly young girls. And so, that kind of the power of the toy, the power of play, role models are in that object. But also, Lego figurines have two faces on them as well. The little heads swivel. And so that at times the chemist could look quite frustrated with their failing experiment or with their colleague who was mansplaining, whatever it might be. But it was a really interesting object for me also to kind of learn about the breadth of the museum and its collections. We have a young V&A, which is about design and young people. Formerly, it was the Museum of Childhood. We have a lot of Lego in the collection. And really to bring, I suppose, that Lego that we already have in the collection into conversation, like what it is to be a woman in the workplace, what it is to be a young girl with ideas and aspirations. We've only got Artemis and we have a female astronaut today, but also within NASA, there are female scientists. And, what role can toys have within that trajectory of ambition? I also really liked it. And again, we're showing something of the period of the time when the object came into the collection. There was a really brilliant Twitter feed that set up called Lego Academics. And it was just the most joyously satirical take on the workplace, all acted out with these female figurines in the workplace. And it was, academia as well, also a place of, at times, distinct challenge.
I love it. Who got to build it?
Actually,
do you remember who got to build it?
My colleague and I, Christian Folsing, I think we built it, and we had to buy an extra. I now can't remember because I'm not an adult Lego fan what they're called, but the flat piece of Lego onto which you assemble
needed
it.
An extra one.
We had to buy that too. But what's interesting also with, this is absolute museum speak. We object number all of our objects. And this is by no means the largest Lego set we've had, but is each brick an object? Is each brick an object part? Or is it once the figurines are assembled, they are forever one and remain as such? That's the curator nerd in me. But for a nerdy thing like a figurine set about women in the workplace, you bring out the nerd.
Oh, I love that.
And just for any Lego fans, we do have a video of a recent Lego addition to our department online now, a Lego construction site. Which follows on in that trajectory of people suggesting of objects to make, Lego objects to make. So you can watch him build the whole entire set online.
I loved one of the ones that stood out to me was the refugee nation flag, because I don't follow the Olympics, so maybe that's part of why I hadn't heard of this object before. But I found it really powerful, and I was wondering if either of you could tell us a little bit about that. What
maybe
that object
is.
Do you want to have a go?
Yeah. So
if not, I've got all the information so I can read it.
The date, what was the date? 2016?
The date of this one is it says that it was for the Olympics, Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games in 2016.
Yes. So the refugee nation flag was brought together in 2016 for the Rio de Janeiro Olympics. And flags, costume, or the idea of what you're going to wear at the Olympics is a really important part of the identity and the design identity of the different countries. The Olympics is only once every 4 years, so it's a really time to project what's happening in your country at the moment and, to come forth with a sense of pride. And for the refugee nation group, that was their opportunity to do that and to come together with a kind of united identity at that time. If you think back to 2016, we were having many conversations about small boats or the politics of war, all of these conversations that we continue to have today. But refugee nation, or the idea of coming together under one banner, was particularly poignant that year.
So it was a campaign. It was the first time the Olympics had a refugee team, and there was a kind of campaigning effort to give them to enable this group of people to have, as Donata so brilliantly says, a unified identity. And a kind of call out happened. And Yara Saeed, who is a refugee herself, at the time she was based in the Netherlands, was the designer who conceived of what is in effect a very large orange flag with a black stripe running through it. And when you look at it, it feels somehow resonant or familiar. But of course, it's a visual reference to the life vests that so many refugees use, or is part of their journey to safety. And so it was a very evocative design choice. Very simple, very much within the language of flags. It's, we're talking about emojis and languages, supralingual designs, that reach beyond barriers or borders. And this design that Yara put forward is very much that. I mean, it was interesting also because the IOC, so the International Olympic Committee, are very prescribed about what is and isn't enabled within the framework of the Olympics. And so actually the refugee team were not officially permitted to use this identity.
So they were officially a team, but they weren't permitted to use this. Okay, interesting.
But you saw it being waved. Is that what you say for a flag?
Waved?
Yeah. Waved? You wave a flag?
Carried.
Carried.
Waved,
you saw it in amongst the the audiences and the crowds at the Olympics, and a number of the athletes were seen with it draped around their shoulders. So that was about impact and reach and a sense of a kind of collective want for that moment of recognition and pride.
I found this inspiring on the website description. It says, Saeed's inspiration came from her own experience as a refugee when she fled Syria and arrived at the island of Lesbos, where she saw piles of abandoned life jackets. So that visual, really, really evocative when you read that and you see the image of the flag. We're almost at the end of our time, but I just want to ask you one more question, which was, is there any, and maybe this is more top secret, which is fine if it is, but is there anything that whether it's events in the world right now or specific objects that you're looking at that you're going, we got to get that in next, that you're looking out for?
So we already have two objects that we know are going to happen. Well, again, it comes back. We were talking earlier about these, and rightly so, there's a rigor of approval. Like we can't just go, hey, Donata, let's go to the high street and buy that object. So there are two that Donata and I and our wider team are advocating for. So watch this space.
Okay.
And both of them speak to politics, technology, and a changing global picture. And there's another one that's about wildlife and nature. So, and again, it's that balance across politics, material innovation, design provocation, social and civic purpose. Like that breadth of interest sits across, or we hope we successfully manage to capture those points of interest and conversation in what we do. So those are the ones that are in our mind at the moment. But then there's also the ones that get away. Or the ones where we change the ones that get away because we can't get to the object, but there are also the ones where actually we think differently as we've talked about building this case. And I think we learn through doing that, and it's not always the best answer that object comes to the collection. And that's an interesting one that we've learned as now 12 years, 11 years.
Any well-known objects that went by the wayside that you
one that's an interesting one, super interesting. Well, I'm biased, obviously, forgive me. But and the nice thing is it's on display at the museum, but it's on long loan rather than in our collection. So at the time of the Edward Snowden leaks, there was a dispute between the Guardian newspaper, which was the British publication, and the UK intelligence services about who owned that information. Okay. And so the Guardian was asked to return a set of computers to government because they held information that the government believed they had unlawfully. But the Guardian said, no, those are our computers. And this is digital information. And if you take these computers, it's still in the world. And so and then there was an agreement made that the intelligence agencies would go to the Guardian offices and destroy those computers. The Guardian held on to those computers where any part of that technology that stored data was damaged. And so there were these damaged computers. And to me, immediately, that was such a powerful rapid response collecting object because it was the material evidence of a fight or a contest for the power or influence in the digital public space. And so this was an object. It was an Apple, I think it's a Pro that we have on display. So, a high-end laptop, which is entirely broken up into parts and scratched up. To me, that's a really powerful communicative object. So I wrote to the editor of The Guardian, and the initial response was, yeah, why not? And then actually, as we spoke to The Guardian and to their archivists, they were actually, no, this is a really important object of this newspaper's history. We have an archive. We're going to keep it. And then the conversation changed to, actually, we've never tried to keep a computer, albeit a not working computer, in the archive. What is the kind of knowledge exchange that can happen? But also to have it on display at the V&A is a really powerful thing. So it's not a rapid response collecting object, but we have it on display in our Design 1900 to Now galleries in a section that looks at digital anxieties.
Okay.
And again, if we come to think about the museum and its wider collections, that sense of destruction as an act of political will is something that we have across our collections, across time and geographies. And so again, it's a very powerful object about the digital today, but it's also, think about the Reformation or think about other points of disagreement or distrust in history, and that object resonates really powerfully.
And that's on loan from The Guardian.
Yes.
So it's still there if people want to check it out. Okay,
Yes.
interesting. I love it.
But it's almost the best success when somebody realises the value of their own object.
Yeah, exactly. No, you can. We want to hold on to it ourselves.
So that's 2013.
So rapid response is if you go to the museum, just so people know, obviously they can ask someone when they arrive, but it's in the Design 1900 to Now gallery or section of the museum.
So it's a suite of galleries 74 to 76.
Oh, look at that.
So they can find it there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. It was really, really fascinating to hear about all of that. I encourage anyone listening to go and check it out and look at the other parts of the museum as well. But that's been the rapid response collecting for the Victoria and Albert Museum. Thank you so much, Corinna and Donata. You have one more thing you wanted to throw in?
I do,
Go
yes.
for it.
Please make suggestions. Rapid response is about a public conversation. So any of you, please come forward.
We would love those emails. You
We
can
will
say,
put,
Dear
link.
Rapid Response Collecting Team.
Yeah, please
and
do.
we'll love those emails.
Yeah, we'll link that up in the show notes for people. If they've got suggestions, they can send them to you. So fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Ah, there goes the yoga bell, making me feel zen already. It's time for Archie's Neuro Nuggets, quick actionable insights from the emerging field of neuroaesthetics.
Hello, Big Smoke community. My name is Archie McAlpine. I'm an interdisciplinary specialist in the wellbeing space. I'm an entrepreneur and researcher specializing in well-being and the field of neuroaesthetics, which is the newest branch of neuroscience which explores how our brain responds to the arts and to our environment. The science of ASMR. I'm on my way home from work. It's rush hour, and the Northern Line is absolutely packed. I jump onto the carriage and manage to squeeze my way in. The workday itself has been really busy, and the tube isn't really helping me to relax or take my mind off the day. My headphones are on, but my usual chill-out playlist isn't quite doing it for me, so I think I'll put on some ASMR instead. I can hear the gentle sweep of a paintbrush on a microphone, the click of fingernails tapping on a glass. Then, someone biting into an apple? Strange, but oddly enough, just what my brain needed. For some people, they might melt into their headphones. For others, reaching straight for the skip button. So what is ASMR? ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, a fancy term for those brain-tingling sensations that start at the scalp and trickle down the spine in response to certain gentle sensory stimuli. It's not a disorder, It's not a medical diagnosis. It's more like a strange superpower that around 1 in 5 people experience. Think of it as your brain's response to soft, focused attention. Sounds like tapping, brushing, whispering, or slow movements. It exploded in popularity in the last decade thanks to YouTube, TikTok, and a generation looking for low-tech ways to unwind. So what's actually happening in the brain during ASMR? People who respond to ASMR show greater activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, a brain region tied to emotional regulation, self-awareness, and social connection. A high-tech form of neuroimaging called fMRI scanning shows that ASMR experiences have more connectivity between brain regions responsible for attention, emotional regulation, and sensory integration. The sensory tingles you may feel is brought on by a surge in dopamine, your reward hormone in the brain, as well as oxytocin, our love hormone. Together, these neurochemical shifts help to explain why ASMR can feel so soothing and emotionally grounding, even if the exact mechanisms aren't fully understood. While ASMR doesn't directly induce sleep, the overall sense of comfort and nervous system downregulation can help the body transition into a more relaxed, sleep-ready state. What's wild is that many ASMR triggers, brushing sounds, soft tapping, rustling, stimulate the same C-tactile nerve fibers that are activated by slow, gentle physical touch, like gently stroking your skin. These fibers are tuned for social comfort, the kind of touch we associate with caregiving, closeness, and safety. That's why ASMR can feel so calming. Your brain is essentially simulating being nurtured without anyone actually touching you. However, not everyone's a fan. Not everyone finds ASMR soothing. Some people find it disturbing, even infuriating. This might be due to a few different reasons. The first being misophonia, an aversive reaction to specific sounds like chewing or breathing. It may also be hyperacusis, a form of sound hypersensitivity, or just plain individual differences in our brain's wiring. Neuroscientific studies show that people who don't respond to ASMR don't activate the same reward or emotional processing regions. In some cases, increased vigilance or discomfort takes over instead. So if ASMR makes you squirm, that's valid too. Your nervous system just isn't on the same wavelength. If you're curious, give this a go. Tonight, pop on a short ASMR video or audio clip before bed. Start with non-verbal sounds like tapping, like this. Brushing, like this. Or pages turning, like this. Avoid eating or whispering, especially if those make you cringe. Close your eyes and notice. Do you feel a tingling sensation? Does your breath slow down? Do you feel calmer? And if not, that's okay too. You might just be more of a white noise or binaural beats person. Tingles or not, one thing's for sure, our brains are wired in strange and beautiful ways. ASMR is just another reminder that sound shapes how we feel, and sometimes the quietest moments are the most powerful. Oh, look at that! I just missed my stop. I guess the ASMR really did work well for me.
Thanks for that, Archie. The mind is a strange and powerful thing, and that seems like the perfect cue to tune back in to our audio stage. Now, once again, here at the Big Smoke, where shadows hum and secrets drift like smoke through the streets, two magicians emerge from the corridors of the Xander Eldrick Institute. Their training continues, their craft deepens, and the world you think you know may shift ever so slightly if you listen carefully.
Greetings one and greetings all. Welcome to another mystical installation of impossibility from us,
The Strange Brothers.
My name is Salazar Strange, Sorcerer Extreme.
And I am not Craig. No. For you see, dear audience, I have undergone a transformation, so to speak, and I have finally found the perfect stage name. I shall henceforth be known simply as Chronic.
Chronic.
Yes. You know how, like, cool, edgy magicians have just a word as their name, like dynamo, named after the Greek word for power.
Right.
Oh, and of course there's pen, named after a pen, I assume.
Sorry to butt in, Craig. I don't think Penn of Penn and Teller is named after a literal pen.
Right. Yeah, no, because surely he'd go for something cooler, like Biro. Oh, Biro's not a bad shout, actually.
Yeah, so Chronic.
Yes, exactly. That's my name, sweet cheeks.
Right, yeah. So Chronic, it sounds a little bit,
Sick as all heck?
well, sick in a sense, certainly. It puts me a little bit in mind of, like, an illness.
What? No. Well, yeah, well, maybe, but like a cool, edgy, sort of magical illness.
Or like a back pain.
You don't like it, do you?
No, I do.
You do not. Come on, just admit it. You hate my new name.
No, I like it. I think it's really cool.
You're lying. I can tell you're doing that thing you do when you're lying.
What thing?
Oh, come on. Your eyes are darting back and forth faster than a ping pong ball, and you are sweating profusely.
Well, it's just hot in here, and I happen to be recalling a particular ping pong game that I saw recently.
Oh, you are lying. And what's more, I can prove it by using the power of hypnosis.
Hypnosis? Craig, come on. The mind is a delicate thing that's not to be tampered with.
Craig is dead. Only Chronic remains. And I have honed my skills in the ancient art of neurohypnotism, so much so that simply by speaking a series of seemingly unconnected words, which I have been implanting into your brain over a series of weeks, I am able to grant myself access not only to your mind, but to your subconscious mind, where the truth shall be laid bare.
I'm sorry, you've been implanting words into my brain. I think I would have noticed.
Roll the tape!
Okay, let's agree on a random phrase to speak at exactly the same time, and then we'll edit out this conversation so that the listeners think we did it with some kind of mind-melding magic. Freight train. What? No. Something more random and complicated, like pineapple. No, are you listening to what I'm saying? Right, sorry. Yeah, just give me a second. It's right at the bottom of my bag here. That should be good. No, that's a bongo. No, that's a kumquat. What on earth have you got in there? And, here it is. Right, well, that was extremely obvious, actually. I should have picked up on it. I just thought you were being...
Freight train.
Whoa, hang on. What are you doing?
Pineapple. Bongo.
Whoa, what is happening?
That's it. Sleep, Sal. Sleep. Kumquat. Yugoslavia. Tap shoe.
These are such weird choices.
Bindle. Sesame. Clacton-on-Sea.
Am I being Jason Bourne?
And finally, Ascot.
Ascot? I mean, what do any of these even mean?
Aha! Now he is asleep, dear audience, and I shall speak directly to Sal's unconscious mind and expose the truth. Sal, can you hear me?
I am Sal.
It worked! Am I speaking to Sal's subconscious mind?
I am Sal.
Yeah, got that, thanks. But more critically than that, can you actually hear what I'm saying?
Ha. Yes, I was just pulling your leg.
Oh, right. Yeah, very funny. I didn't realize Sal's subconsciousness had such a sense of humor.
Ha. You should have seen your face.
I wasn't doing anything with my face. Hang on. Your eyes are closed.
Got you again. Ha.
You really are gullible.
God, your subconscious mind is such a...
So, what do you want to know? I can tell no lies.
Ah, yes. Perfect. Well, what do you think of, my new name?
Remind me?
What? You've forgotten it already?
Not a great sign, is it?
It's chronic. Remember? Chronic.
I remember. I just wanted to hear you say it. I mean, how long did it take you to come up with that?
Okay, I can see what's happening.
It sounds like a condition.
Right, thank you.
Introducing the incomparable Chronic and his incredible lingering cough.
Yes, we all get it now.
It sounds like a rejected strain of weed. Like, hey man, do you want a baggie of Chronic? It's totally dank.
Okay, fine. It's stupid, I get it. Thank you for your honesty. I mean, it's easy for you. You got given a cool name. I mean, Salazar Strange. It's ready to go. What am I supposed to do with Craig?
Sounds like you have a lot of baggage.
Can you blame me?
Maybe if you were able to access your subconscious mind, you might be able to cut through the noise and come up with a semi-decent stage name.
Oh, maybe, but that's impossible. I can't access my own subconsciousness. Someone would have had to have already implanted trigger words into my brain, but that's...
Creatine.
No way.
Celestial.
What?
Fromage. Long Johns.
I can't believe Sal Jason Bourne me.
Well, technically he didn't. I did. Cedar.
Wait, so he subconsciously tried to access my subconsciousness? Well, that's just rude.
Peephole, Slender, Milton Keynes,
no, this is not a nice
Center.
feeling at all.
Can you hear me?
I am Craig.
Yes, but can you hear me?
I am Craig.
I know, but can you hear...
Ha, I got you.
You are the worst. So... Chronic.
Yeah, it stinks, I know. I just wanted to be cool, like you. I really love you, dude.
It seems I am uncomfortable with emotions.
Oh, right. Maybe if we were able to access our subconscious minds, we'd be able to express our true feelings to each other.
Well, luckily, I've already implanted a trigger word in your brain.
Me too.
On 3 then. 1, 2...
Supplement.
Oh, we're back.
It feels good to be thinking consciously again. But hang on, I thought we were going into our subconsciousnesses.
Yes, well, I subconsciously tricked my subconsciousness into thinking it was accessing our subconsciousness, whereas it was actually just reawakening our consciousnesses.
Right. So I suppose the real magic trick of today was learning that honesty is always the best policy.
No, I think it was the hypnosis.
Oh yeah, I suppose it would be, yeah. Oh, I never asked. What do you think of my cool new hat?
Hate it.
Good to know.
Yes, give it up once again for the Strange Brothers and that insightful look into the inner workings of the human mind. But we'd expect nothing less from the Strange Brothers. Well, that's all for today's episode. We've explored the transformative power of objects, the effect of sound on the mind, and even taken a trip deep into the subconscious. And if you're in London town, check out the latest rapid response objects in the Design 1900 to Now gallery at the V&A in Kensington, or the brand new V&A East, opening in Stratford this month. And whether it's through an object, a sound, or a touch of magic, remember to listen closely, because you always belong here with us in Big Smoke.